me panicking, come over and help. I'm delayed today. It should be fine, but if you see me over there going,
I'll run over.
how are things? Good, good. This looks like a new thing. Did you get a new thing?
It's all the same.
Really?
Same setup. Yeah,
It just looks a little shiny.
does the job. I know.
Welcome to the September 21st meeting of Rotary Club of Louisville. I'm Kevin Lynch, President of the club, Paul Harris Fellow +3. Providing an invocation today is Ann Murnell, Executive Director of the Legacy Foundation of Kentucky, and also a board member of the Kentucky Fund of Louisville.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of reflection and gratitude. Thank you, good and gracious God, for the privilege and blessing to gather today for food and fellowship. We thank you for our meal in a world where too many go hungry, and for the bonds we share when too many are lonely. Please strengthen our spirits through this time together, that we may live out the greater purposes to which you call us through service, integrity, goodwill, and commitment to advance the common good. We ask your special blessing on the women and men serving worldwide in the armed services. You know their needs, struggles, and joys in a way of life committed to duty and sacrifice. For the many sacrifices they make every day, we offer our thanks. With grateful and humble hearts we pray. Amen.
Amen. Leader of the pledge and forward task is Kelly Hutchinson, Executive Director of Bear Love and the Salvation Army Louisville, and Chair of the Invocation Committee.
All right, if you would please follow me in saying our four-way test pledge. Okay. I'll do the pledge of allegiance first, and then we'll do that. All right. All right. If you would, place your hands over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America Is it the truth four-way test? Is it the truth? Is it fair to all involved?
Will it build goodwill and friendships?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. This is my first time, so I appreciate y'all for that.
At the time you introduce your guests, Rotarians, please introduce yourself first, then your guest with their name, title, and organization. And guests, when your name is called, just stand at the table. And guests, afterwards, please join Craig Sherman at the table in the back immediately after the meeting for a brief What is Rotary session. I think that's actually over there. So after the meeting, guests, please go over to that table and meet with Craig Sherman.
Who is currently serving as the clinical pastoral education supervisor for the VA in Nashville, Tennessee. And also have to call my big brother.
Mr. President, my name is Tyler Allen, and I have my sister Gail Allen, who practice law and is friends with our speaker's mother. I went to Africa.
Mr. President, I'm Fred Allen, and I have a number of guests today, so perhaps the best thing to do is, you really want to get a pause after this person's name is now. Hold on. So everybody's announced that you will stand and digest it. First, Bill Pregliasco. Bill is the hired Senior Vice President of Business Strategy and Marketing at CHEP, which is Brandon's company. My dear wife, Linda Allen, who's retired adjunct professor of government and active in a number of other things. Dr. Richard Rink. Dr. Rink is a retired professor of anatomy at the University of Louisville Medical School. Mr. Ted Watson, the principal of Library Photography and Kentucky Documentary Film Project. Catherine Quigley, who is the design director at Chanel James Interior, and was effective Rotary member. Also happens to be the sister of our speaker today. Mr. Tom Herman, who is the retired corporate environmental manager at Xeon Chemicals, and retired Major General Michael Davidson, whom you may have met before, who provided that here.
Mr. President, my name is Carlos Hernandez. I'd like to introduce my guests, Alana and Doris Hernandez, who are entrepreneurs that we want to that just want to do this and bring in Latino and how to do this.
Fred actually gets the Delane Taylor Award in her absence. She's actually at a conference this weekend, a Rotary conference these couple days. And so he's actually competitive with her to the number of guests he invites. And now we want to celebrate the introduction of two new members to Rotary Club. Fellow Rotarians, it's the duty of Rotary Club to add new members from time to time, so we may not only increase our usefulness and influence as a club, but also extend the spirit of Rotary throughout the community. Today is my honor to formally welcome two new members. To the new members, you've been elected to, why don't you come up actually? Might help if you know being introduced. Stephen Swan and Henry McGee. Yeah, this is really long, but there's a lot they've done, so it's worth it. Aaron is a Louisville, Kentucky native from the Newburgh community. He joined the U.S. Air Force at the age of 17, and over his 14-year military career, he He served as security forces, military police, combat arms, weapons instructor, and personal security bodyguard, with 3 tours of duty overseas, including Kurdistan, Afghanistan, and Iraq. As a civilian, he continues to serve his country community as a training counselor with the U.S. Concealed Carry Association and is owner of Rhinox Research Group, a veteran-owned, certified MEV accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Rhinox serves as an academy for firearms training and defense education and force protection with more than 40 clients secured and 1,600 students trained and over 200 5-star reviews from online. That's pretty good. 200 5-star reviews, that number, that's pretty impressive. And Stephen Swan, as an Army brat, we got a number of things. Stephen has journeyed across the globe, and he proudly calls the Bluegrass State home. An alumnus of the University of Louisville, he met his better, and we mean far better half, the lovely Nicole Swan, while at U of L. They have now been married 13 years and spent every moment of life raising 3 incredible daughters, aged 12, 6, and the newest addition only is 9 months. As the Director of Graduate Student Recruitment at U of L's College of Business, Stephen aims to raise U of L's brand awareness and offer insights into the transformative opportunities and graduate programs offered here in Louisville and around the world. Stephen finds himself in a global perspective. In fact, he's so worldly that he joined the prestigious Louisville Rotary Club. How about that? That really sets it down. His appreciation for Rotary's global vision was honed during his time as a guest at Danville's Rotary Club while working at Santa College. My mother lived in Danville actually the year after the war, World War II, and we actually visited many years ago. We visited with her roommate, she had seen her like 40 years in Center in Danville. With a master's degree in international relations and over a decade of experience in international education and student recruitment, Stephen knows a thing or two about the importance of connecting across borders. He's managed international student service at institutions like Santa College and Troy University, and has globetrotted over 25 countries in the past decade. Aaron's first assignment as a new member was to do the pledge and forward test. And we actually have a flag exchange today. Linda Barker Moore, would you please join us at the podium?
So this is from Long Beach, where we have our other home, and you're our sister club.
Good. Sure. I had lunch in Long Beach. After where Queen Mary boat, the ship is in his dock there, still it's fascinating. He toured the boat and he had lunch there.
So I am Vice Chair of Rotary Honor Scholars and Chair of our Interact Clubs. And we are having a blood drive at Western High School. So we would really, this is a Louisville Club endeavor, and our interactors at Western High School will implement it. It's Monday, October 9th. We would really appreciate you coming out and donating. The flyers are on your table. You can scan this as well. And we're hoping for a great turnout. It's 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we need your support. And pre-registration is so important instead of walk-ins. Thank you.
Linda's been very involved helping out here with students and some of those programs, and she's also very involved, you know, in Long Beach. She's just really been a charm of our club to come here. Be a Rotary here, still there, still a Rotary neighborhood. See, there's the Queen Mary right there. Yeah, I have lunch right there. How about that? Now it's my pleasure to welcome Fred Cowan, retired Circuit Court Judge, Chair of the District Peace Fellows, TRF, Co-Chair of the Violence Reduction Committee, Paul Harris Fellow Plus 6, to the podium to introduce today's speaker. I want to also mention something about Fred. It doesn't mention he was former Attorney General of the state. That's a pretty big deal. But showing character, I think it was about 15 years ago, Fred was looking into running for the U.S. Senate against Jim Bunning. Eventually decided not to run, but he collected a lot of money, as they do when they're running for office. And I gave him, a decent amount. And months later, he decided not to run. And what he did, he gave everybody their money back. Who does that? Seriously, because, you know, when you get campaign donations, that's your money. You do whatever you want with it. But this guy's got a lot of character. I want to thank you for that.
Well, that's a nice little plus. It's always good. Somebody's to go, right? So, and, you know, he doesn't even owe me anything. So that's great. You forgot about it. It's my distinct pleasure and great privilege today to introduce our speaker, Major General Donn Hill, who is currently active and part of our wonderful United States Army and military. Donn is a native Kentucky, grew up right here in Louisville. In fact, I think I introduced his father and his sister here today to welcome him in this speech. He was commissioned, and forgive me, Donn, if I messed up this, but we edited a little. I mean, his resume is so long that we figured we better leave a little time to speak, so we edited some stuff out. So, and frankly, with the military, you don't know what's really important and what's not unless you're part of it. So I hope we didn't leave anything significant out. Major General Hill was commissioned as an infantry officer through ROTC in 1990. He has served in light, air assault, airborne ranger, striker, and mechanized units. His service includes leadership and staff positions from the platoon and division level at duty stations in the United States, Korea, Iraq, and Afghanistan. In support of the global war on terror, Major General Hill deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, get this, 11 times for a cumulative 62 months. He served with the U.S. Army Special Operations Forces in some particularly intense situations. If I were to list all of his developments and leadership positions, we would not have time for him to speak. He returned to Fort Bragg and became the Security Force Assistant Commanding General in May 2022. As the SFAC, I don't know if that's how you actually say it, but I'm guessing SFAC Commanding General, Major General Hill's command and soldiers are engaged in training the soldiers of other nations' militaries around the world. There are very few organizations in the U.S. military that have such a global reach, presence, and impact. The ripple effect from Major General Hill's command and soldiers truly benefits the militaries of the free world. Major General Hill is a graduate of the Command and General Staff College at the United States Army War College. His awards and decorations include the Combat Infantryman's Badge, Expert Infantryman's Badge, Ranger Tab, Master Parachutist Badge, and Aerosol Badge. Major General Hill is married to Mrs. Young Minnie Hill, and I do want to say for all of us to recognize how important this is. You know, there are not a whole lot of Major Generals on active duty in the United States. Of course, Major General Davidson is in the past, retired, is now retired, but there are not a whole lot. And it's special for us here in Louisville to have such a distinguished member of our military and have him speak to us. So welcome, Major General Hill.
stay right here. All right. First of all, Judge, thanks. Really do appreciate that kind introduction. And thanks to all of you for spending some time here today and giving me an opportunity to talk about your Army, the United States Army. And I'm going to show you a quick video here, but what I want to talk about, though, besides just talk about the Army, if you got questions about the Army, I'll be glad to talk about that. But really, the theme here is trust, because that is something that senior leaders in the Army, at my level and higher, are concerned about. You, the American people, trusting your Army, trusting us to do the right thing for the nation, but more importantly, trusting us with your sons and daughters, or in some cases, some of the folks I've met, your grandsons and daughters, because we understand that that's a pretty significant level of trust that you need to give us, and we take that very seriously. And I'm not going to say there's a crisis of trust. We are concerned about that, and I'll elaborate a little more. But before we've got a hook, if we could show the video here. Is that? Or do you want me to press it? What do you want me to press? Look at that.
Over the last almost 250 years, the Army has become one of the greatest ground forces the world has ever seen. We have been the main effort for every conflict in our country's history and have dominated our adversaries.
You should install a win in your unit. I never allow second place trophies to be accepted, presented, or displayed in any trophy case of their unit I represented. If you come in second on the battlefield, you will accomplish your mission. And personally, you're often a kid.
Okay, so that's probably what you're going to get if you get on YouTube and you know do a search for U.S. Army and you want to watch a video, or if you see some of the glossy videos that we use, these commercials to try to bring people into the Army. And that's exciting. I got goosebumps every time I watch it. I've seen it a few times. That kind of, when I was 14, 15, 16, I would boom, sign me up today. I want to do it. But what we know in the Army is it takes more than a slickly produced video advertisement to get someone to commit their life, you know, in the Army. Okay, and we've got a lot of veterans. I've been impressed with the number of veterans that we have in the room, but they did not make that commitment, whether it was a 3-year commitment or a 30-year commitment, based on a minute and 14-second video. They did it because they trusted the organization that they were getting ready to join, and just as importantly, their families trusted that organization. And so that's where what we found is the trust thing is really important. It's more than just, hey, I'm going to go do something exciting. This is a big commitment. And so with that, let's talk about me and my family and why I'm here today in Louisville. I'm from Louisville, as you heard Judge Cowan say. I grew up here. We moved here when I was 4. On the left there, that's my family. The day I was promoted to Major General, that's Bill and Catherine. They're in that photo. That's my wife, Donn, standing next to me. That's Jeff, Catherine's husband. And then that's their lovely daughter, Julia. This is before William, their youngest. That's in 2021. And so what's important here is my mother did not trust the United States Army when I wanted to join in 1985. She did not want me to join the Army. She was dead set against it. She wanted me to go off to college and do something else. But I convinced her, and that man right there, Bill, helped convince her that it was okay for me to join the reserves. I could get my foot in the door. I could get a taste of the Army that would sate my desire to go out and be all I could be. And then the contract with Mom was, okay, I'm still going to go to college. And so there was a trust issue in 1985 with my mother. And she is of she grew up during the Vietnam generation. 1985, the Army was just 12 years away from the all-volunteer Army, which was enacted in 1973. There was a lot of scar tissue in the country from the Vietnam War. There's a lot of distrust of government, and the United States Army is a very big representation of the U.S. government. And so I learned early on that, okay, hey, Mom's trust, Mom believing in what I want to do is really important. And currently, today, we have a recruiting crisis in the United States Army. And recently, the other services, the Navy and the Air Force, for the first time, are having an issue. The Army's had challenges bringing folks in since 1973 for various reasons. The state of the economy, what's going on, the surge in Iraq and Afghanistan, people are concerned. So this is not uncommon, but today, as I speak, it is the greatest challenge that we've ever faced. And so as we looked at that as an Army, and we discussed that at the senior leader level, we did a lot of analysis on, okay, what's driving that? Is it the economy? Is it the pay? Is it the war in Afghanistan? Is it whatever's going on? And there's a lot of different things. It's a complex problem. But one of the things that we did recognize, and a lot of the analysis pointed to, is there is a challenge with getting the American public to trust us with their sons and daughters. And when we were having these discussions, I was like, yeah, I get that. Mom wasn't really trustworthy of the Army in 1985. That took a heavy lift. So that's important. Families are important. The majority, over 80% of currently serving active duty service members have a direct family member that they can reach out to and say they were in the military. They served, and that is a point of reference that provides them that trust, because they had someone in their family could say, hey, I did it was great. We were telling stories earlier. Hey, this is a great experience. It's not the video. The video may be the hook, but if you really want to reel them in, you've got to have someone else that's going to say, yes, you can trust this organization. We trust them. We are willing for you to support you in that endeavor. So families matter, and that's one of the reasons I'm here with you all today, is because there's a lot of folks I know that have service that we've talked about, but there's plenty of folks that, if I was to say, hey, how many people do you know on active duty in your family? There wouldn't be a lot of hands going. And what I want you to take away from this at the end is that you do have those conversations, and that you do talk to them, and that you don't steer them away from the opportunities that I'm going to talk about. So that's really a key takeaway. I went, and Judge, you didn't mention this, and I know we're on U of L's campus, but I am a graduate of the University of Kentucky. And again, Bob and Bill wanted me to go to the University of Louisville, but I just wanted to get out. I wanted to get away from home, so don't hold it against me. I came here and interviewed for the ROTC scholarship, and they said, hey, if we offer you a 4-year scholarship, will you come to the University of Louisville? And I said, absolutely not. Needless to say, I didn't get a 4-year scholarship. But anyway, nothing against you, I want to get away from home. That's one of the reasons that I was living. But the 4 heroes on the right there, that's 1991 at Warrior Base Camp just south of the militarized zone in South Korea. All 4 of us were in the University of Kentucky ROTC program. It's me on the left. I'm the good-looking guy. Steve Young is the guy just to my right, to my left, to your right as you're looking at. I had lunch with him yesterday. He's retired. He did 20 years retired. He works at Fort Knox at Human Resources Command. We've stayed in touch over the years. Great man, great grandfather now. He's bragging on his grandkids. And it just, one of the things that's been great in my service in the Army has been the people that I've met and the relationships that I've developed. And my aide here, Aaron, he can tell you stories. We'll walk through an airport, or we'll go to a military base or whatever, and we're always bumping into people, or people are sending emails. And I've been commissioned lot of people over the course of 33 years in the Army get smaller and smaller. And I'm better for all of those relationships. And that speaks, I think, to the quality of people that do so. The next guy over is Derwood Spencer. He's from upstate New York, but he went to the University of Kentucky. He did 20 years. He's retired now in Washington, D.C. I was in D.C. a couple years ago. I had breakfast with him and our ROTC instructor from the University of Kentucky, who was retired up in the D.C. area. That's how good the UK ROTC program is. Just saying. And then the guy to the right, John Wilson, we lost track of him. He was actually a cadet. He went to Transylvania. But their ROTC program was part of the University of Kentucky. And so we had been in college with him the previous year. He's on his summer outing as a cadet, and he went to Korea because he knew we were all in Korea. He wanted to hang out with us. And so, that's to me, that's a picture. I've got that in my office at home. Again, it's the people. But it's also, I told you I didn't want to go to University of because I wanted to get out of I wanted to get out of town. I wanted to see the world. That was my first duty assignment. I was commissioned at University of Kentucky in June of 1990. In April of 1991, I signed in to my first unit, 2nd Infantry Division in Korea. And that, a month later, I was in the demilitarized zone, conducting patrols on the DMZ, making sure the North Koreans weren't invading and doing what I wanted to do, doing that cool stuff, kind of like what you saw in the video. So that's me, a little bit about me. You heard the bio, but that's my connection back to Louisville and Kentucky. And I only come back to Kentucky to see the family. We were actually stationed in Fort Campbell back in 2009 and 2012. But little known secret, Fort Campbell, Kentucky is actually in Tennessee. Post office is in Kentucky, so that's why I call it Fort Campbell, Kentucky. But Mom and Bill were thrilled because it's only 3 hours away. So I've spent most of that 33 years away from home, but I haven't regretted it. It's been a great experience. Okay, so let's talk about the Army and the foundation of what we do in the Army, which are the Army values. And as we were doing the invocation this morning, some of these values are similar to the Rotary Club. I think integrity is one of yours, selfless service, but these are the foundation of service in the United States. And when we went to the All-Volunteer Force in 1973, we didn't have Army values. It was a conscript force. We didn't have to worry about that. We came in, served for 18 months, 2 years. We got what we needed out of you, and we sent you on your way. But when it became a professional force, an All-Volunteer Force in 1973, we said, hey, we really need to look at what it is that we want people to have, the foundation of values that we want them to have while they serve in the Army. And so this was developed over the years. When I was a young cadet, and then when I was a lieutenant, we had a little dog tag added onto our dog tag that had all these values on it. I had a card carrying my wallet that had all these values on it. It was an inspectable item. You were expected to know by heart. And in the Army, of course, if you go down LDRSH, I'd be there, it's leadership. So that's how we were really easy for us to remember that. But these are values that we instill in our soldiers because we recognize that everybody that walks in the door raises the right hand and we make them a soldier. They may not walk in the door with all of those values, but we are a values-based organization and we stand behind these. And over the years, I've been in positions where soldiers have done things that have gotten them in trouble. And the recurring thing that I do is they stand before me for judgment as I go, hey, which one of the Army values were you thinking about when you did this thing that got you in trouble? And that always got them. It always got them, and they would either freeze up. Several of them would, I brought them to tears, but it's just that simple question because they recognize how important this is. Because you can get behind all of this. And I try to tell people, you can't just say them and memorize them and carry them in your wallet. You've got to live them. You've got to, believe in them, and this has got to be part of what you do every day. And part of my counseling with folks, I talk about, how do you live these values? What does this mean to you? And so it's pretty important. And that foundation, we start that on day one at basic training. You saw some drill service heroes, new soldiers. And so you can call it indoctrination, you can call it propaganda, I don't know what you're talking about. It's instilling values into these fine Americans. And as than we do. Okay? And so from that, let's talk about how we bring people into the organization and how that service starts. And again, you saw some pictures of some initial entry soldiers there at Fort Moore, which is formerly Fort Benning. You may have heard it referred to as Fort Benning, but now it's Fort Moore, and it's named after Hal Moore, whose voice you heard. You might remember the movie We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson portrayed Hal Moore. Hal Moore is famous because of 1965, he commanded 17 Cav, the 1st Cavalry Division in Vietnam, and he battled the Iron Valley, which was, at that point in time, the first large-scale combat between the United States Army and the North Vietnamese Army, not guerrillas, not Vietcong, but really army on army. So it was a very significant battle at that point in time. Hal Moore retired as a lieutenant general, wrote that book. I had the honor of meeting him in 2002. He spoke at my staff college graduation. He's since passed. The post is actually named after both he and his wife, who was very active in the community and an inspirational person just on her own. But it's now Hal Moore, or it's Fort Moore, and it's named after him. So that's the home of the infantry, but it's also the home of the armor, which used to be down the road in Fort Knox, but we moved it down there so we could get everybody together. But those soldiers right there, they're down there at Fort Moore, and that's where we bring folks in and we turn them, take them from citizens, and we turn them into soldiers. And doesn't matter where you are, there's several places besides Fort Moore, other installations, but we bring you in over the course of weeks and months, depending on what it is that you're going to do, and we instill those values, but we also teach you a whole bunch of different things about how to be a soldier. And then, you got the character there in the middle there, Great American, with a giant wrench. You're like, holy cow, what's that go to? Probably goes to the tank. We take soldiers, we give them a basic element of training in the Army, and then we turn them into specialists. We give them special military training based on that guy's a tank mechanic. My aide Aaron here used to be a military policeman. We've got all sorts of tasks, everything from basic infantrymen, tankers, helicopter folks, whatever it is, medical folks. But that can take anywhere from a couple more weeks to some of our medical professionals. Initial entry soldiers, 52 weeks of training to get their medical proficiency to where it needs to be. And the goal is we are building teams that are prepared to fight and win the nation's wars. That's what it's all about. Everyone in the Army exists to fight and win when called upon, to defend you and your way of life. That's what it's all about. And so that's what we're focused on. Grounded in the foundations of the Army values, but then building those teams to fight and win our nation's wars. So from there, folks become a little bit older, they grow up, and they become either non-commissioned officers, the sergeants, the commander, the lead our young soldiers, or officers that we build through different programs. We've got Mike Razat, there's a major graduating from the Command General Staff College. He's about the 10-year mark in his career. He's getting a master's degree in military operational science. So, this is a professional, 10 years in the Army, graduate level, 10-month program at Fort Leavenworth, teaching them how to wage war and how to win wars. That's what that's about. You had Staff Sergeant Lamontagne, who is a National Guard soldier, but she's in one of my brigades. It's a National Guard brigade. She's an intelligence specialist. And she's so good when we're studying some problems, we reach out into the force and we bring folks from the force. She was handpicked to work with our senior enlisted Sergeant Major of the Army on initiatives to deal with some of the challenges that we've had, whether it's recruiting, whether it's diversity, equity, inclusion, whether it's sexual assault, those kind of things. They handpicked her because of her experience and her success over time. And I was like, hey, that's awesome. She's one of my soldiers. And then you've got Master Sergeant Mike Ortiz over there on the right. He used to be one of my team sergeants. And you heard the judge talk about, I work at Security Force Assistance Command. We work with foreign countries around the globe. We're in about 30 countries today, about 600-ish different advisors out there. That's him in Ghana. He was personally commended by the ambassador for his work with our partners in Ghana. So it's this young non-commissioned officer and an ambassador. The President's representation in Ghana is recognizing his success. So those are all great soldiers, mid-grade NCOs and officers that are doing awesome things. You know, sometimes close to home, sometimes, you know, Ghana's a long way from here. You know, it takes you about 2 days to get there if you fly. And they are committed, selfless service, that's one of those Army values. They are committed to making the Army better and taking care of you. And then as you go a little bit longer, you continue service. That's a Command Sergeant Major, the Airborne Ranger Training Brigade there. You know, he's leading by example. When he's inspecting that paratrooper's harness, that guy's getting ready to jump out of an airplane. But then what he'll do is he'll put that harness, his own harness on, and he'll lead the way out the door. Follow me, because he's got to lead by example. That's the leadership that we instill in our soldiers. Okay, he's not afraid to do that. It's not, hey, go over there and take that hill. It's follow me. We're going together. And back to that teamwork. We're building those teams for those hard fights. We've got to have a vision. We've got to know where we want to go as an Army. We're currently focused on Army 2030 down the road. There's a lot of bad people in the world that want to take a shot at the title. And so we've got to look deep. That's Lieutenant General Frank, the Army CENT commander of all Army forces in CENTCOM in the Middle East. And he's talking to 3 of my brigade commanders about his plans and what they're doing in the Middle East. There is an abandonment narrative in some countries. They think we're leaving. Pulled out of Afghanistan. They're like, hey, where are you guys going? You don't care about us anymore. All you do is talk about China. He's talking about how he's dealing with that and the vision that we can maintain those relationships in what is still a very critical area of the world. And then that's my smiling bug on the right. Last Thanksgiving, I spent time with our troops in Poland. That's a brigade commander in the Polish Army. The Poles love America more than America loves America. Poland, they love this country. They were very happy to see us. I've got a bunch of advisors that work with the Polish Army. I wasn't expecting to see him. He ditched his 2-star to come visit me. We spent the day checking on his troops. But you've got American soldiers around the globe every day representing you, maintaining those relationships with our partners, because it's a team fight. And that's not just the American team, that's everybody else. So let's go back to the so what. People tell me thank you. They say, hey, thank you for your service. And I go, you're worth it. And I mean that, because I'm not in it for the pay. I'm not in it for the Gucci uniform, although this is the only thing I own that people compliment me on as far as wardrobe. When I was 18, it was about jumping out of airplanes and shooting tanks and stuff like that. I'm in it because I think this is important. I believe in America. I believe in the American way of life. And I believe that we need to have a professional Army that protects that way of life. But I all need your help to make sure that you are sharing that message across the nation. Because we are at the lowest interest in service in history, okay? The propensity to join, that's the lowest it's ever been. And that's the people who are saying, yeah, I'm considering joining the military, not just the Army. There's all the other videos that are out there, all the other stories of these bad things that are going to happen to you. It's terrible, don't do it. I can fill volumes with all the great things, but the things that get the headlines are bad things. You all know that. And I'm not saying bad things don't happen, but that's not the norm. The norm is all those great Americans that I showed you that are inspirational on a day-to-day basis. There is a challenge with America's youth not qualifying. Part of that is we've made it very hard. We have high standards, and we stand behind those standards. But part of it is the biggest challenge is obesity. And we've probably heard we've implemented a program to bring people who are motivated that want to come in, and we are sending them to a several-week-long program to help them meet the physical standards so that we can then actually accept them into the Army because they want to be there, they want to take advantage of it. The competition for talent. We offer incredible opportunities, educational opportunities, credentialing opportunities. You can learn a trade. if you're a truck driver in the United States Army, and you get out after 3 years, you can get a commercial driver's license. And so you get the 3-year service, we're going to pay you, we're going to train you, you can learn how to drive a truck, and you got a commercial driver's license. And oh, by the way, I heard there's like a demand for 70,000 truck drivers in the United States today. Okay, so you know anybody that's a truck driver, tell them to join the Army. And that's all paid for. They're getting paid to do it for 2 years, and they'll get to see it all. But it's all sorts of talent. Folks that want to bang away on keyboards, in mom's basement, staring at a screen, may not want to go run around in the woods, but they think they've got to do that. We've got opportunities for everybody. You want to be a medical specialist? You want to bang on keyboards? You want to study computers? You want to fly jets? You want to fly helicopters? We can help you with all that stuff. There's plenty of opportunities, and so I would encourage you to send us the talented people. But if they're not, it's got to be talented. It can't just be anybody. You have high standards. You want us to have high standards, because when you've got folks representing your nation on the far edge of the empire, you want them to represent it well. You want to make sure they meet up to those Army values. And so finally, like I said, this is a team effort. We're a team of teams. You're part of that team. And so we need your help. I tell people all the time, hey, I don't need you to do it for me, just don't fight against me. We need you to do stuff for us. We need you to be encouraging if someone says, hey, I'm thinking about this. Make sure they're making an informed decision. Don't go with the tropes. Don't go with the myths. Don't go with the stuff that you may have heard from somebody. Do the research, encourage them to do the research, and encourage them to talk to folks. That's a veteran, a Vietnam veteran talking to some initial entry soldiers there at Fort Moore and inspiring them for continued service and telling his story about the great things that he did in the Army. He didn't just leave the Army, he stayed in and retired from the military. We continue to be the most trusted institution in the country, not the most trusted entity. The only people that beat us are small business, but small business is not like an institution. It's like a bunch of small businesses. But as far as institutions, we continue to be the most trusted in the country, but we're lower than we have been, and so we are concerned about that. And so that's why trust is so important. And with that, I think I've used all my 20 or 25 minutes, and I'll be happy to take any questions about whatever it is that you all want to talk about. You can do your attention.
Thank you. That's very impressive. It really obviously is important what you do, but I'm very impressed with the quality of people he's trying to attract. I like the fact you don't need to reduce your values and change your values. You need the best. We need help spreading the word of making it a trusted place.
Gentlemen, thank you for your service and your presentation today. Two things. One is, I presume that many of the jobs in the Army or the military in general are becoming increasingly technological. Is that part of the challenge with qualification? And then I just wanted to clarify a point you made a minute ago. So if a young person says, I want to be, on XYZ position, they're assuming they qualify for that. Are they able to basically say, this is what I want to do in the Army?
Yes. Okay, I want to answer that one first because I want to be biased against my Air Force and any other services. We're like the only service that does that. Like if you say, I want to be an X-ray technician, then we'll go, okay. And we may say, sorry, we're not hiring X-ray technicians today.
Okay.
And we'll immediately go, would you like to be a tank driver? but it's up to you, because we need tankers right now. But it's up to you whether you commit, you sign that contract. So yes, if you you can get on the internet, and there are hundreds of jobs that we have. And if that's what you want to do, go find your local recruiter. This is what I want to do. Stick to your guns until they give you, that's what you want to do.
It seems to me that's a great marketing opportunity for you guys.
Yeah, that's why we've done it. Okay. Hey, you don't know the Marines, you don't know what you're going to end up doing. But I don't worry. But to your first question, the answer is yes and no. And so what you're talking about is the character of war. And so the character of war, the nature of war is it's brutish, it's ugly, it's bloody, it's painful, it's awful. That's the nature of it. But the character of war is we no longer march shoulder to shoulder with flintlock muskets. The character of war is we now have drones. You saw that one guy releasing that drone. We have cyber operations. We operate in space. And so yes, there is a technical aspect of what we do now that has driven us to the standards that we have. We have a minimum, it's called the ASVAB, but there's an IQ test that you take. And if you don't get a certain score, then you can't do certain jobs. And if you want to stay in, if you want to re-enlist and go do something different, you got to get a certain score to do that. So there are technical aspects, and we track that. But I don't want anybody to leave and think, well, watch the news in Ukraine. War and combat is brutish, and you need people on the ground with guns in the mud. And don't think that you can have, apes do that for you. That's got to be human beings. They've got to be intelligent. They've got to be able to fight as part of a team, because they are the ones that are leveraging all of that technology to achieve what needs to be achieved on the battlefield. So, for instance, when you hear about the Ukrainians aren't fighting the way we would fight, it's not taking anything away from them. They're brave, they're valorous, they're working really hard, but they're not as sophisticated in how they fight and how they operate as we are. You can't build an army that operates like that overnight. You need a professional force, and the joint force as well. I mean, it's part of the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, and the Marines as well. Does that help, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Judge.
In general, you talked about the difficulty of recruitment, and you're thinking about the various reasons that might be. I want to ask you about another possibility. If you think about our nation's history, particularly since World War II, World War II, the whole country was totally supportive of what we finally did. There was a lot of isolationism beforehand, etc. And the whole country was tuned toward that, and out of World War II came this tremendous sense of patriotism, and probably been enhanced by the anti-communist fight. And then we got into the Vietnam era, which people my age very well remember. There was so much bitterness and division about that. And it seems like ever since that time, there's been some doubts about the military, and doubts about, should we be supporting this, etc. And to some degree, there's also a sense, I think, perhaps, that there's less patriotism in the country than there used to be, less pride in the American flag, less pride in the different symbols of our nation. And I'm just wondering if that's an issue that you all have talked about, and if that plays somehow into the recruitment process.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for that, because that is a topic that we bring up. And I was at Purdue. An officer I served with is the senior ROTC instructor at Purdue University. He asked me to come speak to his cadets at one of their functions, and I was sitting at a table with these young cadets who were getting ready to, this was last spring, so they were getting ready to become lieutenants. And I asked them, I asked them a similar question. Hey, what's the challenge? Why are we having a hard time getting people to join? Is it patriotism? And one of the cadets, this is a young officer, or young cadet, she's a lieutenant now. She's 22 years old. And she goes, this is last spring, so it's 2023, spring of 2023. She's 22. She goes, sir, yeah, I think it's an issue because I don't remember when the towers fell. And I'm like, right? I mean, I'm sure you all remember it vividly. She had no context. And so I couldn't tell you how many soldiers I served with. I'd already been in the Army 11 years when the towers fell. But there was an upsurge of patriotism across the country. And I had an officer who was an investment banker on Wall Street, was not caught up in that, but he stopped joined the Marine Corps, got out of the Marine Corps, said, I like this stuff, but I want to go to the Army, became an officer, and he's still serving today. And so that upsurge of patriotism generated a lot of folks because they came in and they liked it and they kept it up. But over time, as we got further and further away from 9/11, and things didn't always go the way we wanted them to go, we thought we should have gone, and there's always discourse from the home front. Even in World War II, there was discourse from the home front. People question, and those questions sometimes challenge people. And the problem I have with it is, if you don't like America's policies, I don't say the policies, but service in the United States Army, that's defending the nation, and it's more than just a policy on anything at any point in time. And I think one of the things, psychological, historical here on you, but one of the things we did learn as a nation, we think, is that during Vietnam, there was a lot of distrust and anger on that policy that was directed at people in uniform that were answering their nation's call and doing what their nation expected them to do as American citizens. And we grew as a nation. The first President Bush said after Desert Storm, hey, we got through we cast off the Vietnam syndrome. We said, hey, yep, we may not agree with America's policies, wherever it is, the Middle East, Vietnam, whatever, but the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines that serve our nation, let's not take it out on them. They're doing what their nation asked them to do. And even with a professional force, we were able to maintain that for several decades. And I grew up in that army where people in your generation, whatever, they're like, hey, you're awesome, you're a great American, I got it, because the Vietnam thing was behind us. But what we think now is some of those same things, whereas people are not outwardly negative to us like they were during the Vietnam War, they're not calling us baby killers or throwing blood on us or things like that, but there is less of a propensity to encourage or to be supportive of a family member or a friend or whoever who is saying, hey, I'm thinking about joining the military. What do you think about that? And so does that make sense? So pendulum swung really bad in Vietnam. It swung the other way post Gulf War. It stayed there during 9/11, but now there's a lot of things that are pulling it back, and our concern is that it goes, that we go too far. But one of the other challenges with that is we went to a all-volunteer force, and we've gotten progressively smaller and smaller. There are fewer of us who have served that are out there to tell our stories. And so there's parts of the country where there's nobody that our recruiters were like, okay, let's stop recruiting them because it's just an uphill battle. There's nobody there that can back us up. There's nobody there that's encouraging. There's nobody there that can provide the context. And so it's really hard. Is that helpful? That's one of those things. One of the reasons I'm here is we've got to connect. I live in a gated community that you can't get into. I have to go through the front gate to get a pass from my family. I got permanent cards now just because I'm a general. But Aaron wants his family to get on post. He's got to go. It's rigorous. It's a pain in the backside to get your family onto the installation, and that's a byproduct of terrorist threats and all that stuff. Look at Billy's. You got to keep an eye on that. So we've made it all.
Yeah, I hope, well, mine's a little more lighthearted. Kurt Jacobs, I'm often talking to Kurt Jacobs, so I do a video-centric multimedia program, so that's my context. The kids today are younger generations, they communicate with video predominantly. So with that, there's so many movies that represent the military, from Hogan's Heroes to Platoon to Saving Private Ryan. Is there one that really captures or embodies that experience? If I run into a young person, they say, hey, thinking about doing this, I say, well, go watch this, hopefully alone, or really engage with it. Is there one that kind of, I think that actually might help and you can even promote it. If there is one that really captures, even if it's not Hogan's Heroes, for example.
Well, I appreciate the question because I'm a movie guy. Don't ask me anything about sports. I don't follow I love movies, but every movie you listed was made before 2000. And so I do movie quotes in front of my folks all the time, and Aaron will look at me sideways, kind of going, I don't know what you're talking about. Or I had a soldier come up to me, he's like, sure you quoted this movie? I looked it up. That's a black and white movie. When did you watch that? I'm like, I'm watching on my black and white television. I was a kid. And so it's a great question.
I went back to that
We Were Soldiers, the Mel Gibson movie, it's Hal Moore. That's a Vietnam War movie. We talked about the scriptures of Vietnam War. So if you detach yourself from the policy and you look at that book and that study and that movie is the study of a leader building a team to do a very difficult mission. And it's the human aspects of it, both in the book and in the movie, they do an incredible job of talking about leadership and setting the example and values and those types of things. And so that, again, it's a Vietnam War movie, but it's a really good movie that they can talk about. Saving Private Ryan, that's the mission of the man, right? We are sacrificing ourselves to save. That's what we do. We deal with that on a daily basis. Omaha Beach was a bloody battle. We can't forget the sacrifices that greatest generation made on our behalf. Because you never know. We don't get to pick when that day is going to come again. That's what a lot of us forget. Okay? Mao said, you may not be interested in war, but war is interested in you. Okay? And when Thucydides said, war follows peace, peace follows war. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but we live in a dangerous world. And we have to be prepared to deal with that when it occurs. So we've got to make sure we've got the right people there to do it. So,
thank you.
One of the things you hear quite a bit now is wars of the future going to be won by technology, more superior technology. I wonder how you think about the U.S. now versus, say, China, the U.S. 5-10 years ago versus China, and anything else?
That's a great question. In 1945, after we dropped the atom bomb on Japan twice, we said there were going to be no more wars. It was all going to be pushed button. And 5 years later, in June of 1950, North Korea told into South Korea. And in 5 years, at the end of World War II, the beginning of push-button wars, we were in a ground war. They killed, over 25,000 American soldiers, not to mention all the Koreans that were killed. And it was a ground war in the mud that looked a lot more like World War I, 40 years earlier, than it did any type of push-button war. Now, I say that, but again, go back to the character of war. There's a technological aspect that is challenging, and things like machine learning and artificial intelligence and hypersonic weapons, cyber, space, all of those things are aspects of the character of war that are making it that much harder, that much more complex, but also that much more dangerous. And so that's why we've got to have quality people. In Civil War, the criteria to be in either the Union or the Confederate Army was the number of teeth you had to be an infantryman, because that's what you needed, the teeth to tear off the charge, to load your musket. We're a little more sophisticated. A little more sophisticated. That's a good question. Thank you, Aaron. You got a question or something next?
Thank you so much for taking this question, General. As an at-risk youth that grew up here in Newburgh and has joined the military and become a staff sergeant, as a staff sergeant, I believe actionable items, and I do see the lack of faith and the lack of trust in our military complex, and I know that we need it for times ahead. My question today, is there a success story, a best practice when reaching these unqualified youth, or maybe some qualified youth that just don't have the faith? Is there something we can do, something we can say to these individuals to re-engage that patriotism, to relight that fire, and to kindle the warrior spirit inside of these young folks so that we can bolster our military defense?
That's a great one. And it's what I would ask you is that as leaders in the community, make sure the community is not erecting barriers to people like recruiting there are places in the United States where recruiters are not allowed on high school campuses or college campuses. And that is a legacy of Vietnam. And it's not just college campuses, it's high schools as well. And it's a young man's game. I'm a minority. There's a lot more people in our his age than our age. In man and woman's game. So we need that access, and the preponderance of that are in the schools. But it's also in community activities and not preventing recruiters or, I can't remember the general, we were talking about the Boy Scouts. We need to bring the Boy Scouts to us, and the Girl Scouts, whoever. We've got to bring them in. So encouraging the community to be receptive to our efforts at outreach. That's the trust thing. So I think that's something you all can tangibly do to help us make sure. Again, they're not being drafted. They're making a decision. They're adults. But let's make sure it's an informed decision and everybody's moving in the right direction. I think, am I getting the hook?
By the way, we will not lose to meet the artist reception at September 28th. Is the Thursday twilight evening. So whoever gets this prize at the general, we're going to get for you. Okay, the number last four digits is 2274. Anybody else? That's 74. That's 2274. Well, you'll also get this book back. I scheduled to speaker next week, the district governor, Tom Reed. He's doing another event here in the ballroom. We're actually going to be in the terrace dining room. I'm not sure what that is. But it's in the building, the terrace dining room. You may want to arrive a little early next week because there's another event. Want to make sure you get enough parking. There is parking in the Speed Museum if there's not enough, but better go here if you can early. And please, any guests, please join Craig Sherman over in the Waters Rotary area.